Hey friends, future Megan coming to you before the episode kicks off. I hope that this audio quality is not total garbage. I'm not using a mic, so it's going to sound even more mediocre than usual. So we're in the middle, I know we're in the middle of dystopian fiction month over here on the pod, but life being what life is, we're a little bit delayed with some of our episodes. We're going to try to get some stuff out again before the end of the month, but until then, we had done a deep dive into this Priscilla adaptation, months ago. And it's just been sitting in the queue ever since for a rainy day. And it looks like that rainy day has come. So hopefully you guys are here for it. This movie is excellent and incredible. And we talked about it for a very long time. So stick around and, see if you have any thoughts about it. And until then, enjoy. Hey there, fictional friends, and welcome to another episode of Fully Booked. I'm Megan.
And I'm Shereen.
And it is the last extra little week of the month of May.
Maytember.
Yeah. And so, as usual, we like to pop in here when we have like an extra week in the month and just do a little something, like talk about a movie or
whatever we want.
Yeah, like do a little something just, I guess, that we've been like talking about, thinking about, any ideas that like one or both of us have had about something, and just kind of like have a chat about it, just to like take up that little thing, change up like the routine of always talking about the same subject throughout the course of the month and everything. It gives us like a little springboard into the new month, I find, because it's just like a little fun break for us where we get to talk about something that, you know, has been making us happy, or in some cases like not happy at all.
It's like our like around the water cooler discussion.
Kind of.
Yeah,
Exactly. That's it. Our little things that we just wind up talking about ourselves. And I'm like, this would make like a good episode itself, right?
Yeah. If you think Megan and I are scripted in any way, this is just how we talk to each other all the time.
Oh God.
Yeah. Our significant others can put up with us for like 20 minutes and then they have to go and skedaddle and do something else.
It's when the two of us are together, they have to leave.
Yeah, they're like, oh, there's so much being talked about right now.
And they're there and they're like, oh, this is such a fucking downer. Like,
I know.
Even you and I are having this entire like huge conversation about something pretty like deep in a lot of cases.
Yeah, totally.
So what sent us on this tailspin recently is that we decided to sit down and watch the 2023 film adaptation of Priscilla, which is, for people who aren't aware, it's based on the 1985 memoir by Priscilla Presley called, Elvis and Me.
And this was directed by Sofia Coppola.
Written and directed by Sofia Coppola.
And wasn't Priscilla Presley
She was an executive producer, if I'm not mistaken, on the film as well. So just a little bit of background, because we don't want to get through like an entire, I would really recommend you watch this movie.
Oh, it's so good.
It was very good. But just to give a little bit of background on things, in basically like 2022 at some point, Sofia Coppola had indicated that she'd started writing this and she'd approached Priscilla Presley about a film adaptation of her memoir because she had had it for a number of years and been fascinated by it and wanted to take a look at the relationship between the two of them for the first time from Priscilla's perspective completely, and have a work that was from her feelings about her relationship with him. Yes, yeah, that's it, to really be able to do that. And so there was a lot of back and forth with like securing the rights to certain things, and a lot of pushback from Elvis's estate, which at the time was mostly in the care of Lisa Marie Presley, Priscilla and Elvis's daughter.
Who's now passed away.
Yeah, passed away. And I don't want to speak ill of the dead in any way, shape, or form. I can only imagine what someone's relationship is with their parent when they pass away, when that child is at such a young age. I don't know. I've not experienced that, so I'm sure that it creates a very different sort of view of things. But also, the development of this was coming just off the back of the Elvis biopic that Baz Luhrmann had recently been putting together.
Starring Austin Butler.
Yes, that I'm sure a lot of people have seen, that has its positives and negatives, but definitely I would say is mostly a spectacle of sorts and really skirts over a lot of the more serious aspects of things, because the Elvis movie really liked to take the idea of the Colonel and paint that as like a super villain arc, basically.
It's true. Like, I personally, like, full disclosure, had no idea about any of this. Like, Elvis was not, like, my jam. Like, he's fine. Like, fine.
The music is good.
The music is good. It's catchy. But I didn't ever delve into the story of Elvis. And I love Baz Luhrmann. I just really like him as a director. I think it's because I think he did a fantastic job with The Great Gatsby. And so when I watched the Baz Luhrmann version, I was like this poor man.
I remember you telling me that.
I was like almost in tears watching this movie, because I was like, he just wanted to go and tour the world, and he was like an animal in a cage, and I felt so strongly about this. And I remember telling you, and you were just like, okay, I guess.
I was like, I guess. And then I said, I think only at that time, this was like a couple years ago, all I said, I think at that time was, I was like, but I was like, yet again, it's one of those Elvis biopics that skirts over the fact that he was in his mid-20s and met a 14-year-old girl and essentially kept her on a hook to get married to him several years later. And you were just like, huh? What do you mean?
Like, what?
And I was like, Priscilla was 14 and he was 24 when they met.
Yeah, and I was like, what? Yeah. And so, a few weeks ago, this kind of popped up, and Megan was like,
I've really been wanting to watch this movie.
And like, I love me some Jacob Elordi, so I'm like, all right.
Like, oh, he plays Elvis. Okay, yeah, sure. Like, do you want to watch the Priscilla movie? And I said, yes, because I'd been wanting to get into the idea of this in the first place. And so because of the production issues that they'd been having, because Elvis's estate pushed back so hard about this film and were very vocal about the fact that they didn't like the direction that Priscilla was taking with things, the production weren't able to secure the rights to any of Elvis's songs to use in the film, and they don't really. I think there are a couple of covers that I think they sneaked around a little bit and were able to kind of do
there, but for the most part, it was just music from that
time period.
And you know what? I didn't hate that.
No,
because it was the Priscilla movie.
Exactly.
If you would put in Elvis's songs,
it becomes Elvis's movie again.
And also, like, you have that nostalgia factor and that love for Elvis automatically, because you're like, oh, but he wrote this music and it makes me feel a certain way.
Yep. And this way, what works kind of incredibly well with this is that you never see Elvis performing, not once.
Never.
And so there's nothing to be mesmerized by in terms of like the stage presence that he had and that he exuded and why he was so insanely popular.
No, he was just a guy.
He was just a man.
Yeah.
Because yes, he might have been famous, and that might have been part of the reason that Priscilla, originally was sort of besotted with him. However, at the end of the day, she was the one who spent all of this time with him, and at the end of the day, he was just a man for her.
And she loved him.
Yeah. He wasn't Elvis the performer. He was Elvis, her boyfriend, her husband, father of her child, all of those things. So, anyway, I think this is also, it's just come for me in my head at a very timely sort of moment, because it's just so recently, and I'm going to throw these things out into the ether here, but so recently I watched, I think just looking at this and the relationship between the two of them and the grooming and almost predatory nature of their relationship, really, it just sent me into a tailspin with things having watched this, because I also recently watched Miller's Girl on Netflix, which again, student-teacher relationship, and I was like, why the fuck did we make this movie? It was
especially now.
Oh gosh,
bad enough that we had Pretty Little Liars with what's her face and what's his face, and that whole ridiculousness that happened, and I find that now we're talking about that being that was not okay to have on our TVs, and then they go ahead and they make this movie.
Yeah, and so recently I've seen that representation of things, which that movie made me mad. And then I also have been watching Maxton Hall on Prime. If you guys haven't watched it, it's a German show, but it's an adaptation of I think a trilogy of YA novels, if I'm not mistaken, which also there is a student-teacher relationship in that show. Just as a heads up, it's not the main one, but it exists within that universe and that sphere as well, and it's played in a very different way in Maxton Hall. However, it's just something that it's just these things, when they crop up, especially all around the same time, they send me into a tizzy, because I do have this thing where all of these like grooming, like sort of student teacher and like authority figure, non-authority figure relationships, they send me into a tailspin, and this romanticization of like Lolita and what like taking what the original story in that novel was, which was breaking down like this man being terrible, became something sexy and something that men should look for, and this little like nymphette character who tempts the older man, and it's really her fault because she's been like this and she's been doing that and she acts this way and she really wants it, even if she never says that she actually does explicitly. And it is, I said this before we started recording, this is like my Roman Empire. I come back to this over and over and over and over again, and I never stop thinking about it. Like we need to have like a breakdown deep dive about like Lolita and its film adaptations at some point, because it is absurd.
I don't think I've ever seen any of the film adaptations.
Oh my God.
I think because it gives me the ick, like to the nth degree.
It's going to.
And like the same way that like coming back to Priscilla, like, you know, I'm watching this with like no prior knowledge of what's going on here. And I think I just had my mouth open the whole time, like from, you know, we talked about it at length when we were watching it. It's like from her being like 14, sitting in that diner, like dressed like a 14-year-old in the 50s. And this man coming up to her and being like, oh, I want you to come to a party with Elvis Presley. You
were flabbergasted.
I was like, are you fucking kidding me? And then him being like, oh, I'll talk to your parents, no worries. And like, she's visibly uncomfortable by this exchange. And he literally goes, talks to her parents. And, you know, at first we were like, how could her parents allow this? But then at the same time, like, it's like, what can they say?
Yeah, I know. I do want to give them a little bit of grace. So we should get into actually not like a breakdown of things, but the moments and or themes and stylization of the entire film. Man, Sofia Coppola can direct the shit out of things from a woman's perspective. That woman is like honed in.
Because the whole time you're watching it, like as she goes through like her phases with him. And it's so obvious like what she's thinking and what she's feeling as a woman. You're like, yes, this is exactly what would happen.
This is how you would be feeling. This is how what your reaction to this would be.
All of us would be the same. You cannot say, like, look at her upbringing, look at the time. This man, Elvis Presley, is coming to find her, 10 years older than her. And if he was as good looking as everybody says he was and charming, holy shit, you would be hook, line, and sinker.
100%. That would almost work on me now.
100%. I'm in my 30s. You don't even fall for the charm, but this guy.
Okay, yes, I'm lying. That probably would work on me. But nevertheless, I still feel like you would still be charmed at least for a period of time. There's no way that I wouldn't be at the very least incredibly flattered by this kind of attention from someone.
Especially at 14.
100%. God, just think about how long it takes for your brain to fully develop. Like, there's no way that you wouldn't be completely enamored with this entire idea. But even just, so I love so many aspects of it. I mean, obviously, like, the costuming is incredible. The makeup work, the
music, the set.
The music, the sets, the
her
shots.
makeup was so beautiful.
So
like, she's so good how they've done her.
The shots, and how so often, particularly in the scenes where, like, it's Priscilla on her own, there's almost like a softness around the lens to a certain extent. It's very feminine. Everything is very innocent. Very female focused as well, because it really is her perspective on the matter and her experiences that she lived. And I really like that. And this was something that we also talked about as well, was like with the casting. First of all, Kaylee Spaney plays Priscilla Presley. She's fucking incredible. She does such an amazing job, from going also from meant to have been like a young teenager to almost 30 basically by the end of the film. Her development and the like sort of evolution that she has as that character is really impressive to watch. She does such a good job. And then sort of Jacob Elordi, who's a pretty well-known actor now as well, coming into a role like Elvis Presley. From the outset, you're kind of like, that's weird.
Because we just had Austin Butler as well, right?
Who looked very much, did the voice pretty much spot on. Like, a lot of the aspects of, like, Elvis and what the people who you know, didn't know Elvis but knew him as like a performer saw, like, that's the kind of Elvis that you got in that Baz Luhrmann film. Whereas in Priscilla, it's a much sort of more toned down character, because again, they've taken away that performance element from things.
But he's there purely to represent the charm and the handsomeness and the like the level of allure.
The level of allure that someone like Elvis would have offered to a 14-year-old
And he does a
girl.
great job.
Yeah, and what we really liked, I guess, I think both of us as well, was like all it took were a couple of scenes and to see them interacting with each other and the way that he interacts with her to be like, no, because obviously like Elvis wasn't an incredibly short man, but Jacob Elordi's very tall. He's like 6'4" or something.
6'5", I think.
He's fucking tall anyway, whatever. Anytime you see him in anything, he's always towering over his female lead, and you're like, Jesus, okay.
And they always put a female lead who's like 5
really
feet tall.
short. I know, it's ridiculous. You're like, okay, I don't know. I mean, like, it kind of works in certain things, and it worked really well in this because it adds a level of intimidation to that character, and it adds a level of authority that he exerts over her, and a level of mastery that he exerts over her, where it's like
the Dorleen.
Yeah, and the I'm in charge and I am over you, both physically but also emotionally within our relationship, and the level of control that he exerts.
And with money.
Exactly. And how much like she sort of winds up kind of almost cowering to a degree below the status that he has in general, basically. I really appreciated that. I really appreciated that the voice that he used for it didn't feel so much as of an impression as a person. It just felt like a person who kind of sounds like this, and so it wasn't as like to the T perfect, but it was more just sort of an emulation, and it didn't. It felt like again, because it's not his movie, it didn't need to be this perfect exact imitation.
There was like this great. And I don't know how to describe it really. It was like he was there and he had the impact that he needed to have in the scenes that he was in, but he didn't steal the show.
No.
And he wasn't supposed to.
No, it's her movie.
Yeah, and it was just so well done in that way, because you kind of forget about him when he's not in the scenes.
When he's not there, you're wholly focused on what's going on with her.
Completely focused on Priscilla and her feelings and what's going on with her. And like that whole beginning sequence, where he's met her, she's fallen in love with him, and he moves away.
Yeah.
And, they're having this, like, long-distance relationship where she's, like, pining after him.
Yeah, he's back in America. He's filming and stuff, and she's reading all these gossip magazines about him having, an affair with Anne Margaret and stuff, and, like, all of these things on the films that he was making at that time.
Yeah. And then, like, and the whole time we were watching it, we were like, oh, my God, this poor girl, because if you were 14 years old and you experienced a 24-year-old man in this way, and you fell in love with him and he was this guy, you would never stand a chance of wanting to look at anybody else again, especially not in your age group.
No, because
her parents keep saying that to her, don't they?
Yeah, that you should. There's some boys your age, and they do try. I think her parents need to be given grace in the sense that it was really well written in the sense that Sofia Coppola was sure to include dialogue from her parents where when she's being invited over to visit Graceland. And things like that, and they're thinking of sending her over. Everyone would normally be like, why the hell would you do that?
Even do
but
that?
Her father is saying, he's like, if we don't say yes, she's going to find another way to get there without us.
And they have multiple moments where they say that.
Yes.
And you realize that they're really between a rock and a hard place here, because it's like the damage has already been done.
Yep.
And like that scene where she's gone to Graceland for the first time. She's been bought all these brand new clothes, including like heels. And you pointed this out in the movie. Her shoes are always like a size too big
like
for
a half
her.
a size to a size too big. There's a little bit of gapping in the back of them at the beginning.
Because it's like maybe she's too young to fit
into women's sizes,
right?
Probably.
And then she comes back from Graceland and she's saying to Elvis, "I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back." And he's like, "You have no choice." And so she goes back and she gets off the flight, and her parents look at her and she's got mascara that's ran.
She's been crying
the whole way, and they just look at each other and they know that there is no going back from this.
They're like, okay, we're finished. Yep. She's in there, hook, line, and sinker. He's got his claws in, and we're not getting our girl back ever.
It was so well done.
It's incredible. That's it. And it's just the themes of how as the story develops, you're given an insight into the level of control that begins to be exerted more and more and more, where it's no longer subtle. It's, oh no, you need to be wearing colors like this. You need to be wearing cuts like this. It doesn't show off your figure if you're wearing this. Oh, you should dye your hair darker because your eyes will stand out more.
Show up your eyes.
Yeah, you gotta do this. You gotta do that. Like all of these things, like you should be doing this. Like, baby, don't wear that. That's, that doesn't look good on you. And like these.
Oh yeah, don't wear big prints because you're too short for it.
Yeah, that's
and
it.
I laugh because I'm like, the whole time we're watching this, I'm like, my God, she's so tiny. Look how short she is. And Megan's like, you realize that that's how short you are.
And I'm also I was like, you realize that this is like roughly the height difference between you and your husband, right? Like, okay, Jacob Elordi's a few inches taller, but your husband's like 6'2".
Yeah.
So.
And it's like when he says to her, like, don't wear big prints like that, baby. They don't look good on you. And she gets mad. And I'm like, oh, I totally know how she feels, but it is true. Like, the big prints, they don't really do us any favors.
They don't really do us any favors. That's it. And, and that's it. He was the one who convinced her to dye her hair black.
Because it was like brown. It was like brown.
Like a lighter brown before, and start wearing like more dramatic makeup, like the like big cat eye that she had on a lot of the time and stuff like that. A lot of that was, again, it was slow little moments of control being exerted that were played off as, well, I'm just trying to help you and make you look your best. Like, I'm trying to help you look your best, babe. Like, don't you want me to help you with that? It was very much played off as that.
And then there's the whole, like, he's taking her out and they're going out late and she's still in school.
Yeah.
And so she's taking uppers and downers and stuff, like, and you're just like, good God.
Yeah, and then there was also this was so interesting to see in this film, is that there was also the control that was exerted with regards to sex.
Oh,
yeah, because he has apparently, and allegedly this was the case, prior to them getting married, and I think because she was so fucking young as well, he exerted a little bit of extra control by pretty much reeling her in, where as a normal young girl with developing hormones and desires and
especially
things,
somebody like this.
Exactly, very good-looking man, she wanted to take the relationship further, and he was always the person who rebuffed her and told her no, that it wouldn't be right, and found that way to keep her on the hook. And my understanding is that even after they were married, sex was always dictated by him. When they had it, if they had it, how frequently it happened, all of those things. And I believe that there is, she did basically indicate that after she gave birth to Lisa Marie, to their daughter, he stopped having sex with her completely.
And it just makes you wonder, like, from a psychological standpoint, like, what that was all about. Yeah. Like, was it that she was this innocent thing that he owned and he wanted to keep perfect and intact?
I think that might have been part of it, is that there were so many parts of Elvis Presley's life, from what we've all kind of seen over and over again, that were so messy. And I think that his interactions with so many other women who, let's say, were like closer to his age, and his co-stars and things like that, who were much more involved in the entertainment industry and were probably able to exert a lot more and exude a lot more sexuality on purpose, partially because it was their jobs, but also partially because they were like famous and they did what they wanted to, and these women were more sexually free, and he could not control anything about them. I think he really liked having that pristine, perfect little doll at home who he knew would always be untainted, unlike these other sluts running all over the place, basically. Like, I'm sorry for my language, but I'm pretty sure that's the way he felt about it.
Yeah, probably.
As opposed to just, like, women who were just doing whatever they wanted to because they're allowed to, because women can do whatever they want to.
Yeah, it was just, like, such an interesting thing to watch. And then at the end, when she finally... And this was a distinction between, like, Priscilla versus, like, the Elvis version. In the Elvis version, it was like this big explosion between them and whatnot. And he, like, begged her to stay, and he cried and this and that. But in Priscilla...
It's a slow dying ember,
and she finally goes to him and says, I'm leaving you. And then that's it.
Well, because, again, as far as I'm aware, pretty much all of the instances in the film, since this is based on a memoir, were taken directly out of the memoir. So apparently that's it. There was an incident in a hotel room during his Las Vegas residency where they hadn't been together for a while at that point. Like, they'd been living separately, even though they were still married. And he apparently was, like, very sexually aggressive and forward with her. And it was not too long after that she was like, no, we're not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
So that was sort of, I think, what prompted her to probably get that divorce in the first place, which is understandable. And then, and then Elvis passed away, 5 years later? Something like that?
Incredibly sad story.
Yeah. Priscilla Presley's never remarried. She has had a couple of other relationships here and there.
Yep.
I think she's in her late 70s now, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I'm glad. I find it too bad that, unfortunately, as usual, the more sort of like glitzy glam version of someone's
Focused
story
on
is what's
him.
mostly focused on. And so this film, in comparison, fell largely by the wayside. I think a lot of people have not necessarily watched it.
No, I don't think it got that much media
It didn't
attention.
get a ton of attention. I think because Elvis's estate was like, no, this is the bad one. There, and I understand, there were leaked emails, I think, following Lisa Marie Presley's death that indicated that her feelings were that, this film presented her father as simply a predator and nothing more. I don't think that's true. I think that it presented many nuances.
I think
However,
it just showed how complicated everything was.
And I think, but unfortunately, for once, this was the first time that a film was made that did not portray Elvis Presley as the sort of poor, shy boy who was just too talented for his own good and was taken advantage of, and that there were more aspects to him.
Yeah, and just because, like, of what came out with Priscilla, it doesn't like negate the fact that, yes, he was a shy boy who was too talented for his own good.
Advantage of
and he was taken advantage of. Like, the two things are true. They're not mutually exclusive.
I think that's what happens. I think I think exactly what you're saying. I think that a lot of people can only focus on one or the other, and we can't be. We have to pick a side.
Yeah,
and we can't. It's hard for us to sort of accept that there are multiple facets to people, and so a person can both be suffering but also mistreat others at the same time.
For sure. Like, I don't think anybody was perfect in any of this grand story, and I just think that if you look at it as a collective, it's just incredibly sad.
Yes.
And then you throw in the fact that, Lisa Marie died as well. Like, it's just so sad. And, like, I look at Priscilla Presley and I'm like, you saw your husband be taken advantage of. You saw him go through all this, and you saw his talent and what it did to him. But then he did all this to you as well.
It must be so difficult to reconcile yourself.
My goodness, this poor woman.
Yeah.
And, like, she's still alive.
Yep.
And so, like, after watching both movies and, thinking about all of this, that's what I just kept coming back to, was, like, how incredibly sad this whole thing.
Yeah.
And, like, really all you see on the facade is this great music,
Yes, is the incredible music that was created, and the level of stardom achieved, and the talent, with regards to performing and everything. And so, it's so easy to come back to that all the time. Oh, well, this is the Elvis that we saw on stage. This is the Elvis that we saw in the films and things like that. But so many people, we all forget oftentimes that people are human, and that includes people in the entertainment industry. And a lot of the time, people are like, oh, no, it's not possible that this person would be acting this way or acting that way. People who do these things for a living and get bazillions of dollars oftentimes are actually pretty good at their jobs.
Yeah.
Whether we feel that way ourselves or not when we're watching a performance, they are actors, they are performers, they are people who are putting on a show for entertainment's sake. And so that doesn't always mean that the way that this person is acting in one particular instance that you're watching on a screen is who they are outside of that, And I think that it's really important and healthy to keep that in mind. But I will say that I'm really glad that despite all of the sort of roadblocks that they experienced, that Sofia Coppola and Priscilla Presley were able to have this film produced, to put it out into the world. And so, unfortunately, even though it has kind of been brushed aside to a degree, that hopefully in future years, people are able to revisit a story like this, and, kind of find a way to accept certain things about these icons of the entertainment industry, and the fact that they are flawed and were flawed and continue to be, and that's something that, we just kind of all have to be okay with, and that maybe this means that you shouldn't, no matter how much you connect with an actor's performances or a singer's music or something, that you maybe just don't throw all of your lot into who this person is, because you don't know, and you really won't ever in many cases.
No. You only get to see what they allow you to see.
Exactly. Yep. That's it. But I am glad that this exists. And we just decided to, I guess, hop on and make this episode because we
felt so strongly about the movie.
We watched this movie and I haven't stopped thinking about it since we watched it. So I think it was good. It's fine. You're just here for a little catharsis. We get to work through this together.
Please listen.
And honestly, if you haven't watched Priscilla, go watch it. Go watch it. It's really it'll be worth your time. Whether you're sad or happy at the end of it, it'll probably be up to you. But go give it a watch. It's really worth it, even if for no other reason than actually being a really excellently made film.
Yep.
So, anyway,
and
if you guys,
100%.
Anyway, if you've seen the movie or if you have thoughts on kind of anything to do with this, if you read Priscilla's memoir or something, and you want to chat about it, you can let us know about all of that over on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads at FullyBookedCA. And you can also check out our Facebook group, which is at facebook.com/groups/book was way better. But until next week, guys, keep on reading.
Thanks, everyone.